mission, a real mission, is how much we're going to be able to care for the world and change the image of dentistry, of anxiety and pain.
I'm Dr. Chris Setta, and I'm shining a light on the innovators of our profession to help transform your practice and inspire the future of our specialty. Welcome to the Illuminate Orthodontic Podcast. On today's show, my guest is Dr. Cosmo Haralambidis. Welcome back to Season 6 of Illuminate as we continue to celebrate the 5-year anniversary of the podcast. Today's episode is the third and final installment in a series of interviews recorded during the AAO winter meeting in Marco Island, Florida. If you're new to the podcast, be sure to stick around until the very end to catch some great outtakes and bonus content we have for you. Before we dive in, our friends at the Journal of Clinical Orthodontics need your help. The JCO's practice management study, running since 1981, closes on June 30th. US-based private practice orthodontists are asked to participate by submitting 2024 financial and activity data. It takes about 30 minutes, and in return, you'll receive the full study results, even if you're not a subscriber. You'll also be entered to win a free lifetime subscription to the JCO, potentially worth over $10,000. Visit jco-online.com or check our show notes for additional details. And finally, stay tuned for a quick spotlight on one of the innovators helping to shape the future of our profession. Today's Illuminate Spotlight is CORE, the Classes for Orthodontic Resident Empowerment, created by Dr. Bill Lehman and distributed by the AAO Foundation. Unlock your potential with the CORE program. Designed for orthodontic residents and future entrepreneurs, CORE delivers expert insights into business strategy, leadership, and innovation. Build, grow, and future-proof your practice with resources tailored to today's orthodontic business challenges. Learn more at aaofoundation.net/core. Today, I'm thrilled to shine a light on an orthodontist whose inventive mindset is grounded in a deep-rooted sense of purpose. Dr. Cosmo Haralambidis is a Rhode Island-based orthodontist, educator, and the creator of the Synapse Dental Pain Eraser, a non-pharmacologic device that's reshaping how we manage orthodontic discomfort. Guided by his Greek heritage and the Hellenistic values of compassion and service, Cosmo's journey includes not just product innovation, but the literal hands-on construction of his own practice. As you'll hear on today's episode, Cosmo shares how early mentorship and product evaluation shaped his path, why innovation rooted in empathy leads to better patient care, and how creating the dental pain eraser has allowed him to live out his mission that blends technology, healing, and heart. Well, welcome to the podcast. How are you today, Cosmo?
Thank you so much for inviting me, Chris.
Absolutely.
An honor.
Well, it's a pleasure to finally have you on. I know we talked about this. Unfortunately, our original recording did get canceled as a result of the hurricane in Florida. We were supposed to first get together at MOPC out in Arizona, but why don't you tell everyone where we're at today?
We're in Marco Island in Florida at the winter meeting, the AAO combined AAPD meeting, which is truly amazing.
I want to thank the AAO for having us today, and it's fantastic that we have a joint meeting with our pedo colleagues. It's been really nice to have everyone together.
That's right. I think our fields are very much intertwined.
For sure, which we'll be talking about more about that today, actually. But great to get together with you here in Florida. Unfortunately, The weather has not really cooperated. The sun's out, but it's cold, right?
It's cold. I think yesterday was high of 56. I mean,
It's very uncharacteristic. I would say normal for January in Florida is probably like in the 60s Fahrenheit, but it is unseasonably cold here. I'm sure it's going to be cold back home for you, which we're going to talk about in a second. Before we do, I want to mention what we are drinking today. That's a little early for a cocktail. So at this point, I'm enjoying an Illy iced coffee thanks to the JW Marriott today. You're enjoying some water, but you're a coffee guy, right?
I'm a coffeeholic guy now.
What kind of coffee maker do you have at home?
I do have just one of the regular,
like a Keurig or a
kind of thing. Yeah, that's
okay.
Because it's just fast and quick and easy. But when we have time to make a nice Greek coffee, that's awesome.
Is it like Turkish coffee? What's Greek
exactly?
coffee?
Yeah, exactly. Very similar.
Okay, so it's like
preheat
a
the water and
coffee.
you stir it and you time it so it doesn't bubble over and nice strong. I love a nice Cuban coffee too. I think that's
Cuban coffee is really good.
Fun, so good.
Yeah. Well, I got to find out where to get the Greek coffee from. I'm sure you have a connection.
Sure, absolutely.
So for those of you who haven't figured out, Dr. Cosmo is Greek.
That's right. Down to the bone.
Down to the bone.
Yeah.
But can you set the record straight? Is it gyro or euro?
The G is a gyro, right?
Okay.
Gyro.
Gyro. So that would be the proper pronunciation.
Sure.
And gyro is just the Americanized.
Sure. Yeah, but it is the spinning motion, so gyroscope sound the English, right?
Okay. Yeah. So what does gyro mean?
It means the meat is on a rotating heating unit,
rotisserie.
So it's spinning and you're cutting off as the outer edge is heating.
I never put that together.
So gyrisis, so spinning.
Yes. Yeah. Very interesting. Hey, I learned something new.
There you go.
You've got a really good baklava recipe.
Wife may have. Myself, it's to do it right, you got to spend time and detail, and she is a woman of detail.
No, that's wonderful. Cosmo, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. For those of you not familiar with Cosmo, he is the recipient of the 2023 AAO Innovator Award and the creator of the dental pain eraser, which we're going to be talking about today. Before we do, we have lots of great topics of conversation. We're going to be talking about your Greek heritage today, and I'm super curious to hear about that, as is Jonathan Nicozisis, I'm sure. We are going to be talking about your private practice in Rhode Island. Is that the smallest state, Rhode Island?
Yes, it is.
All right. Interested to learn more about Rhode Island and your practice. We're going to be talking about how you were an early adopter and beta tester of a lot of early technologies today. We are going to be talking about your invention, the dental pain eraser, which I use in my practice, and I really love the product. So can't wait to share more about that. And we are going to wrap it up, too, with some hobbies and interests.
Excellent.
So before we dive into all these great topics, I would love to learn a little bit more about you. Now, did you grow up in Rhode Island?
Yes, I was born in Providence, Rhode Island, and then my family, at the age of 6 and a half, my grandparents moved back to Greece, and my mother and father wanted to go back to Greece. So we ended up, my brother and I and my family moved to Greece for 3 years. So that was amazing, like shutting everything down, all your friends, and going and restarting in another country and language again, and being like immigrant, reverse immigrant.
Yeah. So you were young enough that it was probably pretty easy to absorb the language.
Sure. And but it was tough the first getting into schooling, and because their schooling is way more advanced than the English school system by far. They were already doing things far ahead. I remember the second year I was there, we had to memorize full page texts as far as memorization. That was just part of our day to day. Like there was in the books that you had to memorize the whole page, and just the number of words you would remember, you would get correct or not correct, and you get graded. And we had to learn geography, mathematics, very intense. And yes, intensely fun too. We had a lot of that outdoor activity, but we were really regimented, very focused, and our teachers were really strict. Very different mentality from the U.S. And of course, then coming back, my parents wanted to return back to the U.S. So business there was difficult. My dad started a water drilling company, water well drilling, and didn't have necessarily the technology in the mid-'70s then to be consistent enough. Luckily, he was a restaurateur before that, with my grandfather being having diners in Providence also. So restaurant business was the thing, and came back to that. And we fortunately came back to the U.S. I think I entered back at the end of 5th grade here. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so they were doing more like the diner and restaurant business.
Sure. Yeah, we had the Pizza Place restaurant, their famous pizza houses. We had 2 of them in Rhode Island at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. We had it before. He kept one. Family kept it open. and ran it. So family members still had it. So we were very fortunate to come back to it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I think you mentioned the name, but it was called the
Famous Pizza House. And it was Brothers Famous Pizza was the second. With my cousins ran that one with my dad. Mm-hmm. But my father retired, and he's in his mid-80s now. So it was a really great thing for my parents.
Okay.
But yeah, coming back to the U.S. was really interesting. It really humbles you and makes you really warm up to what the Hellenistic values of our culture is, because seeing how you're treated by people who are born here, like they just treat you like an immigrant unless you're a complete stranger. Of course, I didn't develop my English language skills in the most critical time. Those 3 years were really your most developmental sentence structure and your language and development. And of course, all my classmates were either Vietnamese or Cambodian, and my closest friends relearning English. So in that first few months, I was not put into regular class. I had to learn English proper again.
Yeah.
Those were my best friends. Fernando Arig, Ro Boer. I can remember all the names. Even from back then, I can remember all of us together learning English because of the Vietnam War and all the catastrophe of happened post-Vietnam.
Right. No, it's really interesting. Yeah.
So, really,
so do you think that shaped you in a way?
I think in nature, as living in Greece, and my grandfather's brother was a physician and was really influenced me as he saw I had that caretaking nature. He just one day said to me, "You're going to be a doctor." And in my saint's name, and everyone would say that, my saint is Saint Cosmo and Damien, who are doctors.
Oh,
and they were sainted,
yeah.
They were sainted as the doctors, and they would go and heal people for no fee. They came from wealthy families and sacrificed their life, and were able to do that. And that is my full mission of life.
Oh, that's really interesting. I've got a fun fact story that my wife's grandfather were actually twins, Cosimo and Damiano, which is the Italian version of the saints. Yes.
Cosmo and Damien. There you go. Sure. And in my current day private practice, behind the consult chair is a large icon of St. Cosmo and Damien, which when I do consults, that's what I think of, and that's my mission, and that's for this child or this adult. I'm going to take care of them like my mission.
That's wonderful.
Being involved, obviously, the Greek Orthodox Church as altar boys, and very involved in obviously that and our faith and our beliefs. But my mentor was 1 year ahead of me. George Manis was looking to go to medical school, physician. His dad was a very incredible physician also for Brown University, researcher, and he was going to Providence College. And I asked him, well, what do you think? You're going to go there? Why are you going there? He goes, well, they have a great track record of getting you to where you want to go for in the medical fields. They have that very good program, and it's only 8-10 minutes from my house. So I said, okay, that's where I'm applying early decision. And that was that. And I got in, no problem. And it was pretty amazing. I was like, wow, I got into my school. It was the most amazing move I ever made. Mm-hmm. Yeah, from my degree, I had biology and physics at PC, and I was working 5 a.m. in the morning. I would go to the hospital, Roger Williams Hospital, and I was a radiation technician, warm-up technician. At 5 a.m., I would be there to warm up all the radiation treatment therapy machines at the cancer center. It was a posting at the physics department for a job. I was like, I wanted to go do something through the medical field, and really was very focused on physics and biology. I became almost a full-time employee there, doing my schooling, which the hospital is across the street from Providence College. Met a lot of physicians, met a lot of caretakers there. Had to do a lot of very detailed testing in water tubs to verify the dosage of radiation. That was pretty state-of-the-art equipment that we were testing on one of the newest radiation machines. So a lot of my research and development was in that. I was really mentored by the physicists of the radiation program.
Yeah.
So, but here I was with, maybe I want to be a physician, maybe I want to be seeing death constantly and seeing, I think the last thing that really put, here I was seeing my neighbor pass away there and just deteriorate so quickly. I just think I was more of a happy kind of person. So,
yeah. So that's ultimately why you went into dentistry over medicine.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
gotcha.
Amazingly, from Providence College, there I also met many of colleagues, but one of them was Scott Gerasi, who was 1 year ahead of me at UPenn Dental, who was Providence College also. So as you pair up, as you go in, that was one thing with UPenn, it's really great. And to see the power of PC at the time, as far as the close-knit classes, the faith-based, highly focused on medicine. Many of the Brown students would take some of the more complex organic classes at PC because of the volume of people taking them there, the attention to helping students and taking their testing. And I think it was a great choice. So,
no, that's really interesting. Yeah. What was your time like at Penn?
Penn was so groundbreaking in how they really are pushing the limits, and it was really driven for specialists. General too, very intense programs, but very focused on thinkers. The opportunity to take sub-courses, and one of them was, in my intrigue in product development, they had a product development courses. And they actually had the person who invented the electric toothbrush teach the course.
Oh, that's so cool.
And they had,
I would have loved that course.
It was, simply amazing, even to the point going to the facility and watching the different components of how the assembly occurs and how to market, how to develop, and of course the intrigue on that. But then being there, having the opportunity to be under the mentorship of Dr. Michael Glick, editor of Journal of American Dentistry, and heavily published, and to be able to...
I know Dr. Glick too. He was at New Jersey Dental School for a period of time.
One of my closest of friends and teachers. And when I was there, he opened the infectious disease clinic.
Oh,
I was the first
right?
in the world for AIDS patients and taking care of AIDS patients. And I was, by my third year, I was one of the 2-3 dental students that were allowed to take care of under his directorship. And we were managing hundreds of AIDS patients. And being able to do research with him, I was pretty much his research gopher, but he actually wanted me to be on some of the papers, and I was an OOO publication for oral manifestations of AIDS when CD4 counts go.
Oh, is that right?
And pretty involved with that. But of course, in product development, at that time, you're worried about infection and double glove and what kind of protection you need, and you're worried about your life, right? Something simple can happen right there. But, developed this product called the Gauze Gripper. Gauze Gripper was a 2-prong ring that had the push button with 3 spring. If you ever see, you pick up a screw at the hardware store. So I had a cup on top because I didn't want to touch the gauze. Gauze after a scaling or something.
Wow. So was that your first invention?
That was probably one of the first that really went into intellectual properties.
Wow.
Thought it was a great idea. Dr. Michael Glick and I were brought over intellectual properties at UPenn. They actually have a center for intellectual property. It's kind of...
do they? Okay.
Actually, that's what's so great about that school. And of course, it becomes the university's property, so that is there. Mm-hmm. My interests were, I really got intrigued with orthodontics, working with Dr. Perillo, Dr. Ghaffari, and took a lot more of the sub-courses in ortho. I just really loved the mechanics. Really was physics-oriented and biology-oriented, and the smile and the feel you get from it. It was just, I just couldn't stand looking at the presentations and seeing metal braces. It just really annoyed me. So I went to material science. They let me use the lab. They're like, yeah, go to town. So I told them, hey, you know what? There's some companies out there that can coat metal. It's called prismatic stainless steel. So I went to those companies on my spare time. This is my spare time stuff, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like what these innovations kick in, right? You say, well, there's no way. We have to coat this. So it brought all our material, brackets, wires from the ortho department, brought them there. And they coat it with special crystalline layers that make the light prismatically change color. So you can change it from green to blue to yellow. And I was trying to taint it to the more tooth color tone, which is pretty challenging. But what we ended up finding is that we ran it under strong instrumentation that it actually decreased friction. So on top of that, it was kind of a neat little side thing.
When we come back in just a moment, you'll hear how a last-minute visit to BU led Cosmo to one of the most influential mentors of his career. You'll also learn how Cosmo's early experiences with product evaluation and innovation offer valuable insights for every forward-thinking orthodontist. Stay with us. You're listening to the Illuminate Orthodontic Podcast. Kind support for this podcast comes from KLO and Ortho. What if your braces appointments felt as efficient as aligner appointments, but with more control and less digital homework? The KLO Custom Digital Solution combines digital indirect bonding with a custom prescription delivered through KLO software and a full portfolio of custom brackets for even more flexibility. This clinically driven system reduces repositioning, shortens doctor-intensive chair time, and gives you more control from start to finish. Request a demo at kloandortho.com. Welcome back to our conversation with Dr. Cosmo Haralambidis.
My passion of ortho transitions to getting interviews all around. One of the things I didn't go to University of Buffalo, which I should have, but that time I drove from Philly all the way to University of Buffalo. I was like, that was dead set on probably going there because it was the school to go. You have low tuition. But it was like 16 feet of snowbanks or something. And it was like -4. That weekend I went for the interview, I was like, oh, I'm Greek. I can't
Not for
do
you,
it.
right?
And luckily, one of my close friends was a resident at BU.
Oh, wow.
So at the Harvard interview, BU does not interview. You have to have your own interests. If you want to be at BU, you go over and say hello. You just apply, but there's no way. But they don't tell you, like, so I just put it on my time at the Harvard interview. I'll go over and just visit. And it was the best thing I ever did. I went there and I felt like I was hugged by my grandmother.
Is that right?
It was the program that I just literally, I didn't even think. I was like, maybe we'll see BU, And I was like, oh my God, I have to go here. And then Gianelli was just everything I would ever dream of as a clinician, as an educator. It was a massive blessing.
Oh, that's amazing.
And his mind and what his contributions to our field really instilled passion in me.
Yeah, this is the late, great Tony Gianelli you're talking about, who we actually spoke about recently on my episode with Dr. Barry Glazer. So, yeah, I mean, he seems like he was such an incredible program director. And
he was family, period. That's the bottom line. You will do anything for them. He treated you like a son or a family. You ate dinner with him. You were everything to him. So you didn't want to shame him. You want to make sure you did your best for him.
Wow.
Yeah, right from the beginning, you just learn bidimensional and you learn different systems, but he really opened your mind on the thinking process, how to review literature, and our Monday morning huddle as far as what's good, what's not, from mechanics to everything. So you know how to assess, and even in a curious mindset of myself, they really give you the ultimate tools of research, how to research what's good, what's evidence-based, what products are really fake and not fake. And then you see new things, and you and I were always at the cutting edge of looking at what's out there, and his passion with mechanics and his wire bending skill, his bidimensional technique is unmatched by any. And the mechanics, and I look at it and anchor this, anchor that. Well, you can do this in mechanics. We are wire benders, We know our mechanics. We know our torque. And Gianelli would teach you how to torque the lower 1822, give you like some added torque to give you that control of maximum anchorage, asymmetric mechanics, sliding mechanics, bite opening mechanics, and use the tip edge technology and thinking too. That people think of tip edge, huge potential on bite opening, right? So you blend and teach and do 15 different ways, right? So he's really open-minded. And that's the other thing. He was great. And I stepped out one year, came back in as faculty with him. And so it was really awesome to be part of the faculty at BU Ortho and having the freedom to teach the residents. I love that, being able to contribute to the field.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting. So once you graduated from the program, I believe you headed back to your home state, right?
Rhode Island was the best. Our Greek culture is really the families first. So going back home and knowing the town, and my office is a quarter mile from my home.
Cosmo, you mentioned that you're sort of in the center of the state. I believe you're right outside of Providence, right? In Cranston.
Cranston, Rhode Island.
Which is about 45 minutes north of Newport, which probably a lot of people know
30
Newport.
minutes. 30 to
30, okay. And an hour and a half southwest of Boston. Is that right?
Sure.
If I understood correctly, you did essentially like a startup practice, right?
Yeah. Just the last 3-4 months before you're looking and you're talking to other places to associate with. And it just wasn't a person to be, talked to a few places and knew that the best thing to do is be independent. And that's the toughest road to take. But, we have the drive for it. So I would work in 3 different offices. There were group offices that had orthodontists, that needed more orthodontists. So I would just do that for the first 2 years. And I hand-built my office. I found a location, a very central location on a busy road highway.
Okay.
It was a horse stable before, then became a little deli. I just converted this. It seemed to be a very ideal, high visibility road. And really hand-built it. Really, I would save up week to week, $1,000, $2,000 a week. And my dad, my uncle, and I would just Home Depot-ish, just hand-built the whole thing from bottom to top.
Wow, that's incredible.
Subcontracted, maybe the plumber and stuff, but everything else from the drywall to the hanging of everything.
How many orthodontists can say they literally built their office?
From scratch, from everything, bottom to top. So here's BU, right? Here's your faculty that had renovated their office before. They had a couple of chairs in their basement or their location. So they would be like, "Are you going to start your own?" Okay, I have 2 chairs in my basement. He says, "Yeah, just take these." Of course, they had like a 70s look back then, but the 3M Unitech chairs, if anyone remembers those.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Just reupholstered those. Just sent them, reupholstered. They're really good quality chairs, and I installed them myself. We're hands-on people, right?
For sure.
So I hand-built and had 2.5 chairs. It was one for like a console, right?
Yeah.
So I started that for a few years, and then here we go, right?
Very cool. I understand in your practice, you really started bringing in a lot of new technologies, right?
Really, my first deep dive was with 3M, looking at the smart clip bracket and being the evaluator of one of them. I thought that bracket concept was really interesting because of the mesial distal rotation and the torque and the capability, of course, learning curve and all of everything. But I thought that was pretty interesting. And that was with 3M, being on their product evaluation team, early 2000s for the smart clip brackets and thereafter Clarity smart clip. And that was really interesting on how they product develop and iterate. And you see all the newer material, and that really like pinged like, this is my calling. I can do all this, and seeing what their evaluators are and going to the centers and presenting on that too in their data. So it was really kind of interesting.
Very interesting. And I believe too, you helped with a cloud-based software.
Interesting step before that. I started my office in an age where we didn't have computers. And the first thing was scheduling. So I was like, wow, we're going to schedule. But we had our paper charts, right?
Oh, hey,
but then
I remember those days.
Yep.
I wasn't practicing then, but surely growing up, right?
Yes, but I was right at that transition, in digital camera transition, where we had the floppy disk with a camera, and I was doing that and putting a floppy disk inside the regular chart to upload them later. It was kind of interesting stuff. But the biggest change, this is around 99, 2000. I said, I wonder why these restaurant monitors can't be used in our field, the touchscreen. So what I did is I went and found used ELO touchscreens, and I would use those early on when the software was first on, and I would say, well, this is kind of cool. I could highlight the site on the chart itself, and it'd be easier to you're in a clinic rather than going for a keyboard, for those kind of things. So when we first transitioned to those, and then, you saw the Apple iPhone, it's 2007, 2008, really kicked in with the iPhone, and it was really wow, I've had touchscreens. Using it for the software. OrthoChart was the time before we converted to others, but it was really neat. Then came into late 2000s, web-based communication. I saw the use of all our material, our x-rays, our communication. Of course, we had to send constant data and x-rays and files to our referring colleagues. And I was part of the Seattle Study Club pretty early in 2001, 2002, and how we share information, how we share our referrals, our letters. And I said, it'd just be so much easier than us constantly copying and sending them letters. Why can't we just put it up there and have it? And then so we happen to have some really good technology people nearby. And the same engineers, I was like, I really would love to see a web-based platform of all our information. So I really spent a ton of time trying to develop that. And it was years of suffering there to get that going. And people were not ready. I will leave it at that. Not ready. It was really tough. Like, what was the username, password? They wouldn't. It's right in front of you online. There it is. Just click download. So
that's part of being an innovator, right? Is just sometimes the road is a little bumpy on the early adopter side.
Sure. Yeah, it's hard. Really became important when you had CBCT. It was the first to have CBCT in Rhode Island, probably most of that area. And it was a deep dive in that. And how do we capture that data? How do we store the data back then?
How'd you get into that?
Really was waiting for the right time for it to be really all the bugs out. So it was really pretty much starting to come along in 2002, 2003, 2004, but clunkier, big, too much exposure. See, when is it really going to be applicable? And that's where around 2007, I said, it's just about good. The ICATs were just about there. And that's when I bit the bullet. But really, that was just the beginning, right? Because you do that and you're like, okay, systems processing, how do you convert this to a mini JPEG to be stored in an OrthoChart program so you can visually see where that canine is? Once you see the image and do the image, there's no turning back. You just look at everyone and you can't do flat x-rays. I'm sorry. You don't have what you can see. And I saw that then. I was like, there's no way. You just can't do the treatment that you can see here.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, when and how did the idea for the dental pain eraser first come about?
That was similar around the time with 3M's Smart Clip as a evaluator at that time, because I was working at BU and also clinically, how do we treat patients with pain? And initially with TMJ, our normal modalities and what was available, of course, ultrasound, TENS, occlusal guards, topical gels, compound gels. But then I said, wow, electrical current really is very useful. And you see the review of literature, it's used in medicine tremendously. Back then, they used external and big clunkier machines. And then the thought is, why is this not, like, we have microelectronics. My brother was an electronic engineer, and I told him, why can't we make this into miniaturized? And he said, of course you can. And I said, this is not done in our field.
Interesting. Yeah. So is this like similar to like maybe like a TENS unit or different?
Not TENS. TENS is the same type of thought with electrical pulses, yes, but not what the modality is. And the frequencies are very different. The purpose is very different. TENS is where you want muscle contraction and pain and sensory. You want to feel it. And it's at hertz, where ours are kilohertz frequencies. Really, really kilohertz frequencies. And those studies that you review in the journals of neurology are pulsing deeper, and they're blocking the nerve directly. That's the pulse waves that I was looking at that are subsensory, very safe because it's a net neutral current. And that's where, a brother designed mock-up with and sent it to a different company. And believe it or not, the first initial ones were looking at different medical products. And we use ball clasps in our office, right? So we used to, and one of the things with BU, you made all your own appliances. So you're very hands-on. You made your expanders, you made your Hawleys, you made your everything. So use your ball clasp for your leads intraorally. And your electronics components that you sent to a company, and they made it the exact frequency according to the reviews. And the rest is history.
It's really interesting how it came about. So for maybe those that aren't familiar with the dental pain eraser, I would describe it as, almost like a pen-shaped device. I don't know.
That's exactly what we call it. Most people call it the synapse pen. We call it the dental pain eraser because our field sometimes doesn't want to use the word pain. They have a feel like, oh my God, I don't want to tell my patients I'm causing pain. But I do a lot of early treatment. What is the parent or the child really thinking about? They're really thinking about what's this experience. We're the ones that are going to be the first to do any type of invasive care onto a child. And how are you going to make them less anxious, make them comfortable to see you, to do the procedures? When you hand them the device and let them see it, feel it, touch it, you say, hey, Disney makes wands. This is an incredible wand that you're going to be able to have a great experience.
Yeah. So if I had to just describe it for our listeners, I would describe it almost like a large pen. And on the end, like you mentioned, has two sort of prongs that are ball clasps. And there's a button, right, that turns the device on. And the first time you showed it to me, you're like, stick your finger out. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. This is going to shock me, right? But you really feel nothing. You hear nothing, like you said. And it's not like you feel a tingle or a zap or anything like that.
That's correct. Right? It's really at that level of making it really safe. Now we're at the AAPD, so we will tell you that we're getting pulled to the pediatric realm because of its ability, obviously, with teething. It's monstrously helpful with teething and eruption. Obviously, we're doing canines. And, of course, many of the pediatric dentists and general dentists are now driving into doing full restorative care during certain protocols with the dental pain eraser. So really, just before this meeting, I was over at across the state at the Seattle Study Club, which, again, as I said earlier, since 2001, really focusing on that niche of clinicians because they're really thinkers. The Seattle Study Club clinician, the orthodontists, the periodontists, the surgeons, the general dentists, cosmetics, are really focusing on comprehensive care, and the synapse pain eraser fits in that whole comprehensive plan.
When we come back, in just a moment, you'll hear how Cosmo's experience with orofacial pain led to the development of the dental pain eraser, and how this innovation is helping orthodontists manage discomfort, enhance the patient experience, and stand out through compassionate care. Stay with us. You're listening to the Illuminate Orthodontic Podcast. Kind support for this podcast comes from the JCO. The Journal of Clinical Orthodontics is the only monthly peer-reviewed orthodontic journal focusing on the clinical rather than the academic side of the specialty. Unlike information posted on social media, everything in the JCO has been rigorously curated, vetted, and edited, all by some of the best professionals in the world. I personally subscribe to the JCO because I love its clinical content and find it extremely relevant to my practice. Illuminate listeners can use the promo code POD, that's POD, at checkout for 10% off a new subscription. Please head over to jco-online.com to subscribe today. And we're back to our conversation with Dr. Cosmo Haralambidis. The dental pain eraser uses your advanced pulse wave technology, right, to send gentle subsensory electric pulses to help calm the nerves in the mouth and block oral pain. So in orthodontics, at least in my practice, we really used it for a lot of like mucosal irritations, poking wires, canker sores, just general orthodontic discomfort. Were there any other like applications?
Absolutely. I mean, you're going to be doing bite ramps on most of the 3D printed brackets. Everything we're doing a lot of bite load. You're having reversible pulpitis and that hypoocclusal discomfort. Of course, you're considering it orthodontic, but IPR is, granted, some don't feel anything, others extreme. When you're doing anything from even putting the braces on with people with recession, and how are you blocking the hypersensitivity of the cold and water from the debond discomfort you're going to get from polishing large attachments or with a bracket adhesive with good protocol and how you apply it. It's going to make their experience really great and speed up your efficiency.
Yeah.
So the engaging of impacted canines to tissue and fully engage, it's really uncomfortable. How you use it for that, to post frenectomy procedures, pre and post phenom, TAD placement, TAD MARPI post pain, very painful, as we were talking about at Seattle Study Club and their coordinated care. And Dr. Audrey Jung, I had never asked, she had it right on her presentation right in front of us. Like, I use this for my MARPI patients. And to be honest, I didn't even know she was using it. She came to us because I use this for this. And another clinician, Kitty Toe, was lecturing there. So 2 out of the 10 lecturers were using the Synapse Dental Pain Eraser at the Seattle Study Club to show our influence in the dental realm.
Look at that. And you mentioned, actually, I think one of my favorite like in-office applications is who doesn't have those like adult patients with recession and you're trying to get attachments off or just remove the composite for debonds. And it really improves the patient experience. And I'm all about the patient experience to just take a pause, have the assistant use the dental pain eraser, go over the tissues ahead of time, and such a better experience for them removing attachments or adhesive from brackets.
But Chris, where do patients have the greatest discomfort? Where and when do they have it?
I probably would say either getting appliances for the first time or at that removal.
So they're not in your office when they're in most discomfort. Hence,
that's probably true, yeah.
The patient take-home unit is so vital in the whole concept of the dental pain eraser, and give it in their caretaking bag for home, because that is really important. The patient take-home, that's when they want to have a good experience. That's the number one thing in any lecture you've ever gone to. Make sure they really love you when they put them on. Make sure they really love you, but of course, fill in the middle with all the other components. But at home, you have no crystal ball to say which patient is going to be having nothing to the one that's going to have moderate to the one that's going to have a severe experience. So giving it as a broad spectrum, giving it to your patients and seeing that experience, that is really what makes you stand apart and labels you as a very caretaking clinician. And of course, like we said earlier, the children, this is their first experience. So parents have a tool that's non-pharmacologic to manage their patient's expansion pain. If they have an abrasion on their cheek, you're having a class 2 appliance, and you have an abrasion on the class 2 appliance, you have lacerations on your tongue with any tongue appliances you're doing, how are you managing those? Any appliance you have, from expansion to TADs, overgrowth of tissue with TADs. Like, this is standard of care now. And our clinicians don't really understand the toxicity levels of the brace relief or the other material that they're utilizing, and it's banned in children under the age of 3. The dosing amount, if you look, is pea size for any topical or any like pharmacological means. Are patients or you or your assistants putting a pea size material in that site of application? Or are you coding in, doing 15, 20, 30 times the dosage? And are you really caring for your patients?
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that makes sense. You mentioned before, I just want to circle back to this about the take-home units, how they can actually be branded with the practice name and logo and given to new patient starts, and also referring dentists and dental hygienists, right?
Right. Where's our referral coming from? Most of our referral are from other patients, especially now in 27 years in practice, right? So it's people-based. We have dental referral, of course, but it's people, right? And children can take their device to school. They don't need a doctor's note to carry this at school and use
That's
it.
great.
Make sure you have your clinical version given to all your nursing programs in the area so the nurses can also get rid of any discomfort that the child may have for orthodontics. And then that's your building awareness for the community. When it comes to your dental colleagues, this won the best new hygiene product in 2023. So it has an entry point from hygienists. So you're building relationships. Hey, you know what? Here's a great way to make your patient's hygiene, scaling, root planing experience incredible. And it's branded. So what are they looking at all day, every day? And tell them, use it on all your patients. Really great. Make a great experience. Really be that clinician that really cares and stand apart.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Cosmo, to play maybe devil's advocate here, I know with a lot of new technologies, it does increase costs. And I think one of the things orthodontists have been really conscious about in this past year with maybe a decrease in starts is just looking at the numbers a little more closely. But tell us, like the pain eraser, are there any other benefits to that, or can it be costly recouped?
Just imagine, the patient take-home unit costs the orthodontic office approximately, when you're just purchasing it, around $40 to $45 per unit non-branded, $50 per unit branded when you're buying in 5 or 10 batch.
Okay.
And to think, okay, well, that's I have 200, 300 starts. What's that cost on that? But we have the only product out there that has an insurance reimbursement code.
Oh, is that right?
It's under dental D9110.
Okay.
And it's done anytime you're using it in office. So I, on average, use it 5 to 7 times per day, of which reimbursement is automatically very similar to a space maintainer. And you say, well, I don't want more insurance. I get that answer and question. But in Ortho2 myself, we have a drop-down option on the menu, and when you're using it for X procedure, whether it be IPR or patient severe pain or wire poking, and you use a DPE, you click on that and it's submittable. So you're getting on average between $75 and $80, and we've done throughout the country, different state to state, and this is our averages, per time use, 3 times per patient per year, and then it regenerates the next year.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
Okay.
So you're almost doubling to tripling your ROI from the dental pain eraser. So you don't really think, is this going to cost me anything? You include it with your care. You're building your brand. You're improving your comfort. You're making awareness. You're showing trust and faith with your patients. And you're increasing your revenue in your office.
Yeah, wonderful. And I want to mention for the current users of the dental pain eraser, there's actually a new application tip that's coming out soon, right?
Sure, yeah.
Tell us about that.
So towards the mid to end of March, we have the Delta Rail tip that's going to be coming out. So if you can visualize, the probe now gets changed in shape from just a single ball touch point to an area point. The Delta being a wide, longer area. It's about 8 times longer than a single ball. And the intersection between 2 rails, it looks almost like an equal side view.
Yeah.
If you can visualize that. Anything in the area between, it's around 14 millimeters in length. So 14 millimeters length of a root to approximately, and much more potent. So you have to be trained on how to utilize it. And of course, using conductors. Make sure you have a wet surface. Saliva is important. Okay. Of course, maybe a Listerine from the endo journals and from experience, obviously. But from the endo journals selection, had the highest conductance among liquids. Of course, gels can be used, but I always have to think about what is available in every office all the time. And in children, of course, active fluoride would be another option. Conductance is key. Dry surfaces for adults is one of the main error rates that we had with the ball tip.
Okay.
Ball tip, you would see the clinician missing not half the time, but a lot of the time, both tips must touch to conduct.
So if they're only touching one of the electrodes,
you're getting nothing.
Not conducting, right?
You're not doing that. Make sure both tips are touching and keeping in contact of where you're doing and staying long enough. So you need minimum times, of which we published an article in JCO with Dr. John, because this is actually, and for the September JCO, that gave more detailed summary of how to clarify in certain sub-procedures. Really, really critical. So look for that at the JCO, which highly love the JCO.
I love the JCO too. Definitely a subscriber. Keep an eye out for that article. Congratulations, Jonathan, on that. If I were to describe the new tip for the listeners, I would say they almost look like 2 triangular paper clips sort of coming out. But when you apply it and rub it, you're using the side, which you explained to me is like sort of like increasing the surface area, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Of course, a triangle in Greek,
yes.
The letter delta, right? Yes,
That's right.
I'm seeing the connection.
So we want to change delta, change the way we manage our patient's pain.
Oh, I love that. So well said, Cosmo. Before you mentioned you were the recipient of the Hygiene Award, I want to touch on this, and we teased it earlier. You were also the recipient, very well deserved, I might add, of the 2023 AAO Innovator Award. What did that mean to you to win that award?
Really, really amazing. I mean, we submitted for innovative products and had the interview process on the where and why, what our mission is. And really our mission is to reduce opioid use, manage patients from all levels of discomfort, and just think of even the nursing homes where there's lack of access to care, and having this easy, that non-pharmacologic that doesn't interfere with medication, down to all to the care that we have. And so many people that are suffering from pain. There's a good 40 to 50 million people that just do not access care at all. So our mission, our real mission, is how much we're going to be able to care for the world and give them something and change the image of dentistry, of anxiety and pain.
That's wonderful. Cosmo, I'd like to transition a little bit. You mentioned before that in your Greek culture, family is first, right? Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Coming back to Rhode Island, of course, our parents and being near them, and, you need really, the love and support you have from your family. You're taught that and you give that to other people, but there's nothing better than what you have with your own family. They're there for you at all time. And that's my church community here. And I was very involved, and I became the president of my church, and my wife's family is from the Newport area. So I was the president of my church and what we need to do for our reach and community and structure and amongst all this. So I would be doing that. I was only up to a couple of years ago that I was very much involved doing that and running those. And I was very involved with my Cranston church also. And great. Really, really great.
And you mentioned your wife before.
She works for the government. She's a contractor for the Navy and making the parts and systems of nuclear submarines in the Naval War College and Naval Development. Yeah, so
very impressive.
Yeah.
And I believe you have 3 children too.
3 kids, yes. My amazing kids, an 18-year-old, 16-year-old, and 13-year-old, Eleni, Michael, and Constantine. Yeah, and Thursday was Constantine's birthday.
Hey, happy birthday.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Wondering which one will ever follow in our footsteps.
I was going to ask, any future orthodontists in there, you think?
Oh, we have future innovators, I will say that.
That's good.
What and where, we don't know, but definitely magical minds.
That's amazing. Cosmo, this has been really enlightening, illuminating, if you will. Before we wrap it up today, I wanted to ask, do you have any upcoming speaking engagements, or will the Dental Pain Eraser be at any of the upcoming shows?
Sure. I think the most recent shows, definitely the AAO, the AAPD meetings, and of course, a lot of subgroup meetings that are like the MOPCs and that we have, right? And some hygiene subgroups, Seattle Study Club, many Seattle Study Club meetings, yes.
Yeah. So I'd encourage our listeners, if you are interested in the Dental Pain Eraser, it is a cool product to see in person and hands-on. Like I said, I did try a demo unit on myself, an area where I have some gum recession, and let me tell you, this thing works, so definitely check it out. Cosmo, if people are interested in learning more about the Dental Pain Eraser or have questions, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
The easiest way is simply remembering the company's name, synapsedental.com. It's really easy, or just dentalpaineraser.com. And from the webpage, you'll see the virtual assistant down there also. If you want to even just hit me directly, many of the clinicians, they know we're a small ortho-based colleague-to-colleague company, and you can just call me, text me. I'm very easy to find, but even an email, very easy, info@drcosmo.com. Definitely reach out for me for personal questions, but dentalpaineraser.com for our product. That's the best way.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Cosmo, for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much.
Like I told you in New Orleans when we first met, I really think this device is genius. And thank you so much for helping our patients to bring this to market.
Our Lord is genius. We're just his tools.
So well said. Cosmo, I know we don't have beverages like we mentioned today. We can imagine we had some ouzo. Normally I would say cheers, but tell me, how do you say that in Greek?
Cheers, sigia, to your health.
Okay, that's a tough one. Let me try it.
Sigia.
Sigia.
Hygiene is H. Hia comes from that to your health hygiene. So yeah, the H is silent. Yeah.
Well, cheers to you, sir. Thank you again for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
That's all for this episode of the Illuminate Orthodontic Podcast. On this episode, you discovered how hands-on ingenuity in early product evaluation shaped Cosmo's innovative mindset, how his background in orofacial pain sparked the development of the Synapse Dental Pain Eraser, and how prioritizing patient comfort can help you build a better patient experience. If you're a fan of the show, be sure to follow Illuminate so you never miss a podcast. A very special thanks to our sponsors for this episode, That's KLO and Ortho and the JCO. And we're proud to support orthodontic innovation through our Illuminate Spotlight feature, today highlighting the AAOF's core program created by Dr. Bill Lehman. Thanks so much for listening to the Illuminate Orthodontic Podcast. As always, this podcast would not be possible without the Illuminate team. That's Skylar Adler, joined by Johnny Mitchell on the mixing console, and Tom O'Grady on the Fender Rhodes electric piano. Until next time, this is Dr. Chris Setta signing off. If you've listened this far, you just found our hidden bonus content and outtakes. Before I start the podcast too, I just want to, I'm going to pronounce your last name, and I hope I do not royally mess it up, but Haralambidis.
Pretty close.
Can you say your version?
Haralambidis.
That's not close at all.
The accent was a little different.
Haralambidis.
Sure.
Okay.
Excellent.
Is that better?
Excellent.
Yes. Do you know how long it took me to get Jonathan's name?
Oh, that's fine.
That took me years.
You got to go like a roller coaster. Nicozisis.
Yeah, I think I said like Nicozisis for a while, and I mean he gets it all kind. But even my last name I get all different. You know what I tell people? It's Setta like feta.
Oh, come on. That's great.
And you know what? They never forget it because it's so cheesy.
That's awesome.
He mentioned before that he doesn't really go by his last name, Dr. Cosmo. As I'm introducing you, I have to ask, I think the only other Cosmo I know is Kramer.
Yeah. I can remember that day when that episode came out. And of course, I was at UPenn Dental. And our entry point is almost at the stage, and you have to kind of step down 2 steps and come across. And I knew I cringed. I'm like, oh no, I hope they didn't say it. The minute I came around that corner, of course, it like 110, 120 student all at once. Kramer! I'm like, oh no, that was it.
You were teaching at the time?
No. I think we were like second or third year dental student.
Okay.
Dental. I don't remember. It was like 96 or 95, right?
I think I was going to say mid-90s.
It was like 95.
Too funny. Hold on.
That was kind of fun.
That's an outtake. This happened to us yesterday. The lights cut out, and I was like, I thought it was someone like outside, and then I realized when I walked in today, everything is on a sensor. So this might be an outtake, guys. But yeah, the lights just cut out on us again. Hold on, let me just make sure my computer didn't turn off and like it cut the power. I think maybe my computer just fell asleep. I don't know. I guess I should just periodically wave my hands or something for the motion sensors.
That's funny.
I'm so sorry. So let's pick up where we left off. Do you know where you were?